During the 27th century BC, ancient Egypt experienced a time of relative peace and prosperity, which paved the way for great advancements to be made. The most prominent figure to emerge during this period was an intellectually gifted man named Imhotep, who designed Egypt's first pyramid and advanced several early fields of science. His contributions to ancient Egyptian society were so significant that he was deified centuries after his death, becoming the son of Ptah, the god of architects. Born a commoner in the city of Memphis, Imhotep, whose name means "he who comes in peace," is considered to be the first genius and polymath in recorded history. Imhotep's many roles in ancient Egyptian society included being a scribe, a priest, a stonemason, a physician, an astronomer, and most famously, an architect. As described on the famine stela, an 8-foot-tall stele inscribed into granite, the Nile River stopped flooding during the reign of Pharaoh Djoser, the first ruler of Egypt's third dynasty, resulting in a drought and famine that lasted 7 years. Along with the drought, crime and suffering intensified throughout the kingdom. Djoser turned to the most revered man in all of Egypt for guidance, Imhotep, who was the high priest of the sun god Ra in the lower Egyptian city of Heliopolis at the time. The stele goes on to say that Imhotep set out on a spiritual journey, during which Khnum, the god of the Nile River, appeared to him in a dream and explained that he had placed a curse on the kingdom as punishment for the pharaoh failing to appease him. Imhotep returned to Djoser with his discovery, and upon hearing the news, the pharaoh issued a decree that Khnum's temple be restored and that offerings to the god be made regularly. The floods soon returned, and the kingdom once again enjoyed the peace and prosperity that it had prior to the drought. For saving the kingdom, Djoser appointed Imhotep to chief vizier, the highest title available underneath the pharaoh, and a position given only to those thought to possess extraordinary intelligence and supernatural abilities. As chief vizier, Imhotep was the pharaoh's most trusted advisor in all matters of state and religion. Following the long drought and famine, Djoser wished to prove to his kingdom that the gods had not abandoned him and his rule. The pharaoh's plan was to construct a colossal tomb, which would act as a symbol of his divine kingship and would also facilitate his ascension into the eternal realm upon his death. All previous pharaohs had been buried in the upper Egyptian city of Abydos. However, Djoser parted with tradition and sought to be buried elsewhere. He chose an area called Saqqara, which functioned as a necropolis for the lower Egyptian city of Memphis. Djoser enlisted his chief vizier, Imhotep, who was regarded as the greatest architect in Egypt, to design the structure and oversee its construction. Previously, all funerary monuments had been built in a form called a mastaba, meaning house of eternity. A mastaba is a large rectangular flat-roofed structure made of dried mud brick that covers an underground burial chamber. Imhotep cleverly conceived of stacking 6 square mastabas on top of one another, gradually making them smaller to form a pyramidal shape. He used limestone blocks instead of traditional dried mud brick, which allowed the structure to remain exceptionally well preserved for nearly 5 millennia. The pyramid's interior was designed as a labyrinth, complete with tunnels, shafts, burial chambers, and even chapels. Imhotep constructed an entire complex surrounding the pyramid as well, which included courtyards, temples, shrines, and houses for priests who maintained the premises. Once completed, the step pyramid towered 205 feet, or 62 meters above the ground, making it the tallest structure in the world at the time. Its radical design would go on to spark an architectural revolution, providing the basis for all future pyramids. Djoser was so impressed with the result that he ordered Imhotep's name inscribed alongside his own, disregarding tradition which permitted only the name of a pharaoh to appear on a monument. The base of this statue of Djoser, located inside the pyramid's complex, bears Imhotep's name along with several of his many titles. He who belongs to nobility, first man under the pharaoh, sealer of the bee goddess, the great stargazer, high priest of Heliopolis, master of architects. Imhotep established an organization for builders, which laid the foundation for Freemasonry. It's believed by some Egyptologists that Imhotep authored the earliest medical text ever discovered, referred to as the Edwin Smith Papyrus. The text contains 48 medical case histories presented in a clear, rational, and scientific manner that is remarkably advanced for its time. The Edwin Smith Papyrus leads some to argue that Imhotep is the true father of medicine, rather than Hippocrates, who lived 2,000 years later. Imhotep is also considered to be the first astronomer in history, and is credited with inventing the world's first calendar that was divided into 12 equal months, each consisting of 30 days. Imhotep preached the importance of maintaining a positive attitude in life. His best-known proverb is "Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we shall die."
My father, who was the master architect of the reign, decided that I would not become an army officer or part of the kingdom's administration, but instead should search for knowledge as a priest. Therefore, I entered the close circle of the guardians of wisdom. When I was very little, I remember my mother take me down the Nile, the river of life, to my new home at the temple of Anu. In this center of science and religion, in its great library, I learned how to read and write in the language of symbols that perpetuates the wisdom of my people. As time went by, I studied temple design as well as building techniques, geometry, medicine, and everything that my wise ancestors had been able to fathom during thousands of years about the structure of the universe. Up in the terrace under the sky vault, I learned how to calculate time using Earth's position in relation to the star constellations. Understood that because of the influence celestial bodies have over the nature and the man, watching and registering their motion is very important. I was taught to recognize the essential qualities in different animals, like the hawk's sharp vision, the fox's cunningness, and the lion's strength. I learned that each quality is represented by a deity, a human figure with the head of the animal that best embodies it. I remember the day when my master decided that I had achieved the level of knowledge required to enter one of the forbidden sectors of the temple. Very few had access to the most advanced and secretly kept information about alchemy, the powerful science of chemical reactions. Experienced alchemists worked there, agglomerating stone, shaping sacred vessels and statues. They had a very advanced technology, a secret formula to mix and mold rocks, with small fragments and dust of different kinds of stone. Our people honored priests because of the scientific knowledge we constantly display and our ability to mold stone. For all of us, stone is a symbol of the eternal. The fire of wisdom burst into a consuming flame, and Pharaoh Djoser appointed me to act as master architect of the reign. We dreamt of building a great altar for the sun, a step pyramid made of eternal stone, so remarkably polished as to reflect the light of its rays. It had to be exceptionally high to honor it so to express gratitude for its energy for miles around. I remember when I began to plan building it, I first thought I would have to cut and carve millions of stone blocks. But just for this work to be done, I needed thousands of men and many more to haul them from faraway mines to the building site. I calculated that to drag the larger rocks I would need the strength of about 2,000 men. To hoist them up I would also need huge ramps. But building the pyramid this way would be impossible. The ramp would use much more material than the pyramid itself. I would need hundreds of thousands of men, working shoulder to shoulder in a very small space. I knew I had to find a simpler and more logical way to build, with much less workforce and a reasonable effort. The project would make us a great nation and make Pharaoh Jos's name eternal. I invoked Khnum, the deity represented by a blue man with ram's head. His essential quality is force, with which he condenses energy into matter, shaping all things created. I offered him a stone vessel and asked for his guidance to find a simple path that would allow me to give form to the pyramid. I found my inspiration examining soil in a place I later called Saqqara, which means the one who guides and shows the way. I sensed that the solution was to copy and accelerate this process used by nature in the depths of the sea to solidify fossil remains of marine organisms and mud into very hard limestone rock. I found in Saqqara two different types of limestone formed when Egypt was submerged under the sea. The first one is a very hard limestone, the second, soft, half-hardened, and could be disaggregated very easily. When diluted with water, it transforms into a muddy clay. If I discovered which ingredients should be added to this muddy clay to transform it into a very hard limestone, the problem would be solved. I would then be able to mold millions of limestone blocks, which, having dried, would be exactly the same as natural rock. I wouldn't have to cut and carve very hard rock with malleable copper tools or haul heavy blocks from far away. If I find the formula to harden the soft limestone, I would be able to transport the materials in baskets and cast the blocks in molds. This would simplify the work so much that I would set up the pyramid with very few people and a reasonable effort. I began experimenting, adding different substances to the muddy clay, trying to find the formula to harden it quickly. I tried adding salt, a crystalline mineral found in seawater, which readily reacts with other minerals and most known substances. Then I added lime, a mineral which binds and solidifies other minerals. Lime is made up of ashes from burning fragments of the same limestone rock. Mixing lime with salt in water produced caustic soda, a corrosive substance that sparked off a strong chemical reaction between the clay and the lime, transforming both into a powerful binder and natural cement. I found a geological binder used by nature in the depths of the sea, which takes thousands of years to turn marine remnants into stone. But my mixture takes just 24 hours to solidify and 30 days to dry completely.